Hello and welcome to the Angelati studio here at European Utility Week. We're joined now by Tom and Keith from Sensus, and we're going to be talking water makes a change. So we're talking a little bit off air, and what I'd like you guys to explain is, we've been covering this whole sector for a long time, and there are a lot of sort of metering companies that have been here, but it's always been about electricity, and there seems to be and I'm sure it's not for you guys because you're in the industry, but there seems to be this buzz around water. So I'm not even going to attempt to explain what's going on. Can you just give us an idea of what's happening?
So I 100% agree. There's a real shift within the industry around the potential for data within the water industry, the requirement for data to move from our perspective as a company who has many years of experience and time served delivering water meters for billing purposes, and to now be engaging with the same customers, but really discussing what else can be done with that data, what else could be achieved using the information which is available from each of those endpoints, and using that to deliver significant amounts of value into their organisation around ensuring that, most importantly, that they're able to deliver clean, potable water to each of their customers, and that's ultimately the responsibility of the water utilities that we're working with. And at a time where there's we have an ever-growing demand for water and a finite resource which we have available.
Because there's some of those things which are again seem a bit bizarre, where even in the UK, where we always think it rains all the time and we've got loads of this stuff, there's a water shortage in the Thames Valley and things like that. So that kind of brings it home. But what are some of the unique challenges to this industry? I mean, I would imagine the fact that you have to put these things a half a meter underground for starters.
Yep. So the water industry's main challenges in a lot of parts of the world are around, obviously, water scarcity, as Tom mentioned. Non-revenue water is a really big issue. So whether that be leakage or theft or other ways the water is not captured when it's delivered to customers, and the public in general think that non-revenue or leakage is bad. That's waste, and with that scarce resource that we all know about, it's becoming a bigger and bigger challenge for utilities around the world.
And one of the things that I was talking to one of your colleagues about, what I didn't know is that actually a lot of that leakage is what I call the last mile. As you can tell, I come from a telecoms world. And up until now, we haven't even been able to detect it, because I didn't know this about water meters, that if a dripping tap is unmetered.
Yep.
So what's kind of happening on that side of things?
So traditionally, the technology which is deployed for billing customers, it is unable to monitor these dripping taps, and traditional technologies, mechanical technology, there's an ever-changing performance from the meter. With the introduction of the new technology which we're introducing into the market at the moment, we're able to measure every single drop of water which the customer is using. This means that from a utility perspective, they're able to monitor that data from first install right the way through to the end of life of a water meter, and use that data to actively monitor and then ultimately control their network, pick up on the customer side leakage. This non-revenue water is a significant issue for water utilities.
And what can they do when they've got the ability to detect all of this? You were saying a little bit about new business models. Does that conversation then come into play?
So the potential of what can be done is endless. we're making there's a real leap forward, and you mentioned about the buzz within the industry, but so there's the first part is collecting information. You can collect as much information as you want. It has no value unless you act upon that data. You act upon the information which is made available, and then using that data, the water utility is able to make their network as efficient as possible. So that comes from, as I mentioned, the requirement to deliver clean potable water to the customer. Ultimately, also, a significant amount of money spent by water utility is on pumping water to the customer. And if they're only delivering 60% of the water which they're going through the process of cleaning and preparing for the customer, if only 60, 70, 80% of that is actually making it to the customer, then there's a lot of losses in this.
And so what? When you take that through a little bit, okay, so the losses are one thing, but the same way as there's all this conversation going on from the electric side, hey, new business models, you can now offer services, and is that being reflected in this world as well, where
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the big messages around water scarcity is for messages to customers to use water more wisely. If we're just giving them a bill once every 6 months or once a year that gives them an overall use, it's very difficult for them to manage their water use. So by providing information more readily through effective communications and accurate billing from good quality metrology, we can better spread the message about people conserving water. And it also links into the energy, because an awful lot of water used in domestic properties is heated. So you not only save potentially in terms of water and cost of water, but also on your energy bills in terms of heating for hot water.
And one of the other things I would imagine is that when we talk about water, we are talking about energy in a way. Energy to live, I suppose, the most obvious one, but also it's quite an energy-intensive industry, isn't it? You've got to keep all these mains pressurized to a certain level. I would imagine that relies on electricity. So the two worlds do have a link.
They do. In a lot of countries, the water industry will be one of the biggest consumers of electricity. So the drive to reduce power consumption is very much associated to water, and all non-revenue water or leakage is still water that energy has been used to push around the network. Yeah,
so that dripping tap is not just wasting the commodity,
Absolutely.
It's burning energy somewhere.
Yeah.
So how are the water utilities sort of tackling that? I mean, I read somewhere that I think Thames Water is on the sewage side actually using it as a whacking great big hydro store, for example, to then generate energy. Are there some of those examples that you can draw on?
I think in terms of clean water delivery, it is more about conservation, so reducing the amount of water that goes into the network, either through improving non-revenue water or leakage, or through getting customers to use water more wisely.
Yeah. And on the more getting practical now. Again, I did an interview. It's some time now with Anglian Water, where the head of smart metering there was saying, "Oh, well, look, we got some real unique challenges. Our water meters are sometimes a meter down, and more often than not flooded with the stuff that they're metering. So it becomes a whole lot harder to get that data out. So how's that been solved?"
It is one of the biggest difficulties associated. So from a metering perspective, it's very simple. You know, the meters sit in their environment and they operate under the conditions that they have to. For getting information, for getting data from these endpoints when they're, as you say, submersed in a pit, so they're flooded, that information getting reliable data is very difficult. One of the challenges which we as a provider of this technology have to
So
work
how do you overcome that? And I'm going to draw a weird analogy. For some bizarre reason, I was watching a documentary about communicating with submarines,
Okay.
right? And
Yeah.
The challenges of I think it was communicating submarines all the way down to Atlantic. Is that just some of the technology that's being used here as well? The sort of ultra low frequency bands and things like that.
So you can operate. There are benefits from different radio systems, different frequencies that we can operate at. Sensus as a company, we have a system of technology which operates on a licensed frequency, and we're able to transmit at relatively high power, deliver significant transmission distances, and from a design perspective, we're able to overcome the inefficiencies of where these meters are installed. But it is one of the biggest the drawbacks for the electricity, for the gas meters is relatively simple. The meters are installed above ground, and there's also energy available. With water metering, as you mentioned, they're installed outside of a property. They're an isolated asset that is in a very difficult environment. But that's our challenge, to develop systems that allow us to do this.
And while I was swatting up for this interview, because I had to, I was like going, right, okay, this is going to be a bit different. I also came across that there's a field trial you guys have got in Reading somewhere, something like that. There's some really staggering numbers in terms of I'm racking my brains, but it's like one central collection antenna that's pulling all this data out. You just talk a little bit more like that, because I'm just intrigued about how that works.
So the field trial that we have set up in Reading, there were two elements to that. So there was about introducing a new technology to the water market, but it was also about demonstrating to the energy market that if we can achieve this performance under the conditions that the water meters are installed, then
electric meters are going to be a cakewalk, right? As the Americans say.
Yeah, exactly that. It's a great statement towards the market as to the potential of the systems that we've created and we're now deploying. Yeah.
So, coming to the end of our time here in this interview, I want to go back to the earlier thing about suddenly a lot of people talking about water and smart water and all that stuff. What's driving the thing, other than the fact that the technology can now do it? But what are the other forces that are driving that?
I think the biggest forces and drivers around the world are mainly around water scarcity, growing population. Each individual is using more water than they did many years ago. The World Bank has put out some staggering numbers about when different countries are going to start to enter a period where water simply isn't available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's driving innovation in the sector that maybe hasn't been there for 20 or 30 years. It's not a matter of whether or not this is an interesting or good idea. It's a fact that the world has to do something to conserve what is a constrained resource. It's not infinite. We will run out.
Is that waking up the regulators, and is there like sort of regulatory pressure that's coming down?
I think all around the world, governments are realizing that they could get into a situation of intermittent water, or worse, no water. The public health issues that fall out of that are just huge. And it's something that the world's recognizing that it needs to deal with.
And not to mention the fear that must put into sort of populist politicians, to suddenly be there when, oh no, you can't boil a kettle anymore.
I think one of the greatest fears. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think we'll leave it on that note. Otherwise, we have a danger of going into a whole political discussion, and that's for other people to do, not us. Thank you very much for watching this interview. I hope you enjoyed it, give you an insight into the amazing things that are happening in the water sector, and thanks again for watching. Thank you, gentlemen, as well.
Thank you.